origins of Donkey Kong. Shigeru Miyamoto released an arcade game that would go down in history on the 9th of July 1981. He launched the arcade game Donkey Kong, which at the time was a cutting-edge arcade game that made waves all over the world. In the months that followed, the game also came out in Europe and the US. The game is relatively simple, but was quite advanced for its time. You have Donkey Kong as the main antagonist. Donkey was meant as stupid in the English-Japanese translation, and Kong from the famous King Kong movie. It's in this game where he steals your girlfriend, Pauline, and you play as Mario, aka Jumpman, and must climb through several rows of girders while jumping over barrels and obstacles fired at you by Donkey Kong. The game quickly became super popular, and everyone was talking about it. The game was supposed to be about Popeye at first, but Nintendo couldn't get the rights to use the characters. Mario was supposed to be Popeye, but instead of saving Pauline, he attempted to save Olive. Donkey Kong, of course, would be Bluto. When Donkey Kong was released, it was an instant hit, catapulting Nintendo to the forefront of the arcade and video game scene. Before the release of Donkey Kong Country and Rare's involvement, the Donkey Kong arcade game had sequels and spin-offs, including Donkey Kong Jr. in 1982 and Donkey Kong 3 in 1983. These sequels improved on the Donkey Kong formula by introducing new gameplay elements, characters, and plots. Donkey Kong Jr. was similar to the original game, except the protagonist and the antagonist roles were reversed. You took on the part as Donkey Kong Jr., trying to save your dad Donkey Kong Sr. from Mario, who held him captive. To our knowledge, that is the only game in which Mario is the antagonist. Although the Donkey Kong brand remained popular throughout the 80s and 90s, it wasn't until the 1994 release of Donkey Kong Country, developed by Rare, where it truly took off. The Rare years. Rare is a British video game studio founded in 1985. It rose to fame, particularly in the 90s, for its innovative and outstanding games. Rare joined Nintendo as a second-party developer in the early 90s, getting access to the company's hardware and its intellectual property, including the Donkey Kong character. It was in 1994 that Rare and Nintendo joined forces to create Donkey Kong Country. At this point, Rare had trademarked the term Rareware to refer to its video games. Also in 1994, Nintendo acquired a 25% stake in Rare, which gradually increased to 49%. Rare was able to grow tremendously as a result of Nintendo's investment. Although Rare had many successful games, none of them became as popular as the Donkey Kong Country games. Pre-rendered 3D graphics, detailed environments, and complex characters set this game apart from its other titles. Donkey Kong Country would quickly become an instant success, and it played a vital part in revitalizing the series. Over 9 million copies were sold worldwide, making it a commercial success that received widespread acclaim. Multiple Game of the Year awards were given to the game as well. Donkey Kong Country was the first platformer to make use of the 3D visuals that had been pre-rendered. This made it possible to make locations and character models that looked real, and the game's graphics were praised for their quality and level of detail. Interesting level designs, challenging bosses, and tight platforming controls all played a part in making this game a classic. As a result of Donkey Kong Country's success, several sequels and spin-offs were created, including Donkey Kong Land in 1995 and Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest in the same year. These titles built on the previous game's success and cemented Rare's place as one of the top video game developers of the 90s. Nintendo and Rare continued to work together up until 2002 when Microsoft managed to buy Rare. Despite this, Rare's contributions to the Donkey Kong brand are widely considered one of the most successful and consequential partnerships in the history of video games. The evolution of Donkey Kong. Rare was responsible for many of the great changes made to the Donkey Kong series. These changes and updates set Donkey Kong apart from the competition, elevating its game above the rest. You might wonder, what did they do differently that nobody could exceed? Let's delve further into the graphics. Rare used pre-rendered 3D visuals to create the environments and the characters in Donkey Kong Country. Because of this, they were able to make a game with a level of polish and depth not seen in other platforms at the time. The hugely successful graphics helped the game become a classic. Donkey Kong Country sequels also continued to innovate in terms of visuals and gameplay. Now that's enough gushing over the visuals. The gameplay is what keeps people coming back for more. With Donkey Kong Country, Rare revolutionized platform games. The game's boss fights were particularly difficult, and the controls for the platforming segments were some of the best ever created. In the sequels to Donkey Kong Country, these concepts were expanded upon and new gameplay features and improvements were made. 2 new playable characters in the sequel, Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, were added to the game to help switch things up. Kevin Bayliss was a graphical designer who worked for Rare in the 90s. For Donkey Kong Country, Kevin Bayliss was tasked with revamping the Donkey Kong character. He remade the antagonist from the original arcade game into a more likable and sympathetic figure. This change helped to establish Donkey Kong as the franchise's main protagonist and set the stage for future games in the series. Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, two totally new characters, were given their own distinct personalities and designs, further expanding the universe of Donkey Kong. The Donkey Kong characters became like a real family once they were given backstories and unique traits. Regarding family, did you know this fun fact? The original Donkey Kong, today known as Cranky Kong or Donkey Kong Sr., made his debut in the first arcade game of Donkey Kong. In the sequel of Donkey Kong Jr., his son embarked on an adventure to rescue him from Mario back in the day. And finally, Donkey Kong Country showcased modern Donkey Kong, also known as Donkey Kong III, who's Cranky Kong's grandson and Donkey Kong Jr.'s son. Quite confusing, we know, folks. The launch of Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country, which came out in 1994, was an important turning point in the history of the Donkey Kong series. When Donkey Kong Country came out, it changed the genre as a whole by making improvements to gameplay and graphics. The game featured pre-rendered 3D visuals, which marked a significant departure from the 2D graphics of previous titles in the franchise, and helped distinguish it from other platformer games of the time. There was an overwhelming amount of praise for Donkey Kong Country. The game's graphics, gameplay, and overall presentation were praised by both critics and players, quickly becoming a fan favorite and helped cement the Super Nintendo Entertainment System's reputation as one of gaming's greatest consoles. The influence of Donkey Kong Country on the video game industry was enormous. The game paved way for future Donkey Kong titles and helped to establish the Donkey Kong franchise as a major player in the platformer genre. Also, it raised the bar for what was possible in the video game medium in terms of visuals and gameplay, inspiring other developers in the industry. The legacy of Rare and its impact on Donkey Kong. Rare's legacy will live on in the Donkey Kong franchise and its characters. Rare added characters such as Diddy Kong, Cranky Kong, and others to the game's world and the lore. The Donkey Kong franchise is widely considered to be one of the best in the history of video games, and its popularity is due primarily to the iconic status of these characters. Even after Microsoft acquired Rare, the company's interpretation of the Donkey Kong characters remained the official style, making an appearance in every Donkey Kong included game since. Because of this, we can see on how much of an impact Rare had on these games and the characters. The Donkey Kong Country series, which had been absent for more than a decade, was resurrected in 2010 by a new studio. Donkey Kong Country Returns was developed by Retro Studios and serves as a series continuation. There are some big boots to fill, but Retro Studios stepped up to the challenge. Players and reviewers alike praised the game for its challenging platforming, colorful visuals, and polished presentation. As a result of its consistent critical reception, the Donkey Kong Country series has become one of the most popular platformers in recent years. The series has evolved while remaining true to the core principles and incorporating new ideas and gameplay elements. With the announcement of the new Super Mario Bros. Movie, Nintendo revealed a new Donkey Kong design. If you're wondering why this matters, let me explain. The first time we saw a new look for DK was all the way back in the original Donkey Kong Country game. This proves and solidifies Rare's legacy as one of the oldest and most significant in the history of gaming. They made a design that made Donkey Kong's signature look a gaming icon for 20 years. When asked about the redesign for the movie, Miyamoto said that it was because he wanted to give Donkey Kong a more comedic personality. The impact of Rare on Donkey Kong was legendary. The way Rare interpreted the franchise shaped and gave new life to Donkey Kong. Their achievements in terms of sales and recognition speak for themselves.